Welcome to the Retirement Guy Podcast with Gary Alden from the Kingwood Investment Group. In this podcast, we educate people in or near retirement so they can make informed decisions and bridge the confidence gap. Learn how to mitigate risk in retirement so you don't run out of money before you run out of you. Join Gary Alden and explore strategies on how to live a stress-free retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Retirement Guy Podcast with Gary Alden from Kingwood Investment Group. Good afternoon, Gary.
Good afternoon, Eric.
Hey, today we are going to get to know Gary. We're going to go through some questions. We're going to learn a little bit about his practice, his history, what he does, how he works with his clients. And then the second part of this podcast is really kind of getting to know him on a personal level, which is my favorite part of it. Are you ready for some business and personal questions, Gary?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get started. So, Gary, why did you decide to work in financial services? Tell us just a little bit about your history.
Well, many moons ago, I used to own my own business. And I got to the point owning my own business, I started having more money at the end of the year, end of the month, than I was actually spending.
Nice.
So I asked a guy at my church, we were on the same finance committee together, what should I do with this extra money? Because I really looked up to this guy. And he says, you ought to start buying mutual funds. So I really started getting interested in investing, mutual funds, stocks, and so forth, starting reading the Wall Street Journal every day. And it kind of became known at my church, my community, that I spent a lot of time on this, and people started asking me questions about what they should do with their money. So it kind of turned around from when I first started. And then years later, I got so much interested in it, I pursued making it a full-time career, and back in 1994, went to work with Merrill Lynch.
All right. Well, it sounds fantastic. Do what you love and what you're good at. So it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, Gary, can you tell us, who do you work with and kind of what is your specialty?
Primarily, we work with clients 50 and up. Not saying we don't have people below 50, but that really is the people who are really gravitate toward us. Mm-hmm. And we really specialize on retirement income planning and mitigating risk in retirement. Because you don't want to take one more penny of risk with your money in retirement than you have to, as long as you can hit your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of out of that accumulation phase, and it's no time to play around with that.
There you go.
All right, so can you be more specific for me, though, as far as what you do for your clients?
Well, the first thing we do is just kind of like if you were planning your 2-week vacation, you're going to sit down and plan. Unfortunately, most people probably spend more time planning their 2-week vacation than they do retirement. They don't really give a lot of thought to it. And I say that based on experience. So when we sit down with people, the first thing we do is plan. And then the second thing we do is plan. And the third thing we do is plan. And once we've got the plan to where it's the plan for that client, not for their neighbor, so we do customized planning, mm-hmm. Then the client likes the plan, we implement the plan.
Gotcha. So you kind of gave us an age range and a little idea, but can you give me a description of your ideal client?
Probably ideal client, again, above age 50, and also willing to plan. Some people, believe it or not, are not willing to plan. I've actually had people said, I don't want to plan, just here's my money, invest it. I will not do that. So I guess the flip side about that is people willing to listen, and not saying we just, give autocratic instructions, you have to do this, but willing to listen to ideas on how to structure their finances and willing to learn, that they have an open mind about investing for their financial future. Because what we're trying to do is always use the capital letters SRO, because we want every one of our clients to have a successful retirement outcome. SRO.
Got it. SRO. Fantastic. It seems to me that this would be very much like going to the doctor, and then just if they're willing to listen and implement what the doctor says, they're going to have a much healthier lifestyle. If they go into the doctor and say, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm going to do my own thing, that doesn't make much sense.
Nope.
All right. So you've given us that description. How do you acquire your new clients?
Well, we get a lot of our clients through referrals, because if you're doing a good job, you're going to get referrals. So we get referrals just all the time. In fact, the gentleman I had in my office this morning was a referral.
Nice.
From one of our clients downstairs in the building I'm in. And then second of all, besides referrals, I do a lot of client education events. I've been doing those literally since I started in 1994. So we do a lot of client education events around the area.
Great. Now, events take a lot of work. I imagine that they take quite a bit of work. Who's on your team, and what do they do to help you with that?
Well, you're right. It does take a team because we really run 4 different educational type classes. We run a retirement planning class, which is a 6-hour class. We run a retirement income planning class, Social Security class, and a Medicare planning class. And I've got to have help because it does take a team. We have several people here in the office. We have a couple of CPAs. We have an attorney. We also have a couple of folks who do Medicare planning, Medicare supplement, long-term care. But my 2 key people that my clients are in contact most with when they call in the office are Jill and Rachel. So they're there to take care. Client needs some money out of the account, call Rachel, they'll disburse a check. We need to change an address, everything admin-wise, and there's a lot of administration that goes on when you are retired. Jill and Rachel, they're the 2 key people. They are the face, really, of Kingwood Investment Group. Couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, well, I agree because I have had the opportunity to speak to them. They're fantastic. you got a great team behind you, Gary. When I think of a financial advisor, I know that they all have their own ideas. They all have their own kind of ideas of what they want to do for their clients and what they want to accomplish for their clients. What would you say is your financial philosophy?
It's a good question. I'd say number 1. Take the least, and kind of alluded to this a couple of minutes ago, take the least amount of risk that you need to in retirement to hit your financial goals. Because your goal in retirement is not to get rich. We're presuming you've saved your pot of gold, your nest egg, time you're 60, 65. Now you've got to make sure that money lasts as long as you do. You only have 2 choices with your money. Either money outlasts you or you outlast your money. So we want to make sure I outlast, or my clients outlast their money. So I've created a unique financial planning process, and it helps my client build their wealth, save money on taxes legally, and receive retirement income for the rest of their life, again, with the least amount of risk.
Fantastic. I want to make sure that we do a podcast about that, about your process. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So can you give us just a 30,000-foot view of what that process, kind of give us a teaser for that podcast? What's a 30,000-foot view of your process?
Well, the process, number 1, is, to have the initial meeting so we get to know you, and not just about your money. We need to know about you. What is your picture of retirement? The first day you're not working, what are you going to do that day? The most common answer we get from people is sleep late.
Sleep late and party.
Besides sleep late, okay, what are we going to do the rest of your retirement? How are you going to occupy your time? Again, getting back to SRO, what's a successful retirement outcome to you? And virtually every client that comes to us, it's a little bit different. Different people have different pictures of retirement, and our goal is to try to make sure we put the plan in place so you can enjoy retirement. And I don't know about you, my picture of retirement when I get up in the morning is not, did the stock market go down 500 points a day? Hey, we can't afford to go out and eat. I want my clients to say, okay, the stock market went down 500 points today, so what? I've still got a plan in place that's going to give us the income we need in retirement. Let's go have lunch. Let's go to a movie. Let's go to the theater.
That sounds a lot better than not going out at all. So, yeah, I agree. All right, Gary, the second part of this podcast is really all about you personally, and I hope you're ready.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, then we'll get started. Gary, when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Well, my wife says I don't do enough for fun. But I really enjoy reading. I'm a voracious reader, love history. That was really my minor in college was history, American history. And we love to travel. We normally try to take at least 2 trips a year, maybe 3 trips a year. Got another one planned here shortly. In fact, just planned it this week. And really, when I'm not working, and this just drives my wife crazy, I really, in my spare time, I enjoy reading and studying about what I do every day, and that is retirement planning, investing. I'm always picking up the last book I just bought on the internet, literally this morning, was a new book on Social Security planning by a lady who writes for Investment News magazine. And I've got probably 24 books on Social Security. but I'm always wanting to learn. So I really, really enjoy learning. So in my spare time, I do a lot of stuff learning about helping me my business. So really my business is almost, I'm not trying to diminish this, but my business is almost my hobby. And what I'm doing when I'm not working, I'm reading or studying about it. I really enjoy stuff like that. My wife will pick up a book I'm reading. She'll glance through a few pages and she says, "You like reading this stuff?" and I do enjoy reading this stuff. So really reading and learning more about what I do to help folks in the community, and doing lots of reading history, and doing lots of traveling. Enjoy seeing the world, and again, learning about the world.
Great. So on future podcasts, we're going to be talking about the things that you learned, because you're going to be sharing that knowledge with our audience. But for this podcast, I'm going to ask you to make a recommendation right now of all the trips you've taken in the last 5 years. Where would you recommend somebody goes?
Take a river cruise in Europe.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
We went one of those Viking river cruises that they only have about 10,000 ads every night on TV. And we finally went on it, and it lived up to the billing and more.
Nice.
And we went down the Rhine River from Basel, Switzerland, ended up in Amsterdam, stayed a couple extra nights in Amsterdam. That's been the best trip we've ever taken.
Wow, sounds like a beautiful trip.
Great trip. Met a lot of real nice folks.
All right, next question. Gary, who is your hero?
That's an easy one. That would be my father. My father grew up in New York City. He was raised by an aunt. When he was 13 years old, think about that, 13 years old, he ran away from home.
Wow.
He literally walked across the United States of America, said it took him right at 3 years, picked crops, did things, just day labor, picking crops, ended up in Seattle, Washington, worked a couple of years on fishing boats, going out in the ocean, and then he migrated, eventually came to Texas, saved up his money, opened up a little bitty store, saved up more money, had a bigger store, saved up more money, had a larger store, and that's where he retired in a little scenic, beautiful, the garden spot of Texas, Odessa. And he had a drugstore there for many years, and they also had a retail clothing store. So that's what my folks did for years. But I'm always amazed that somebody with very little education was able to accomplish so much. And if you ever met my dad, you would never know he hadn't graduated from high school, because, again, that's probably I get my habit of reading. When my father wasn't working, he was always reading because he knew he had a lack of education. Mm-hmm. So he was always reading Time magazine, Look magazine, Life magazine, U.S. News and World Report. He always knew what was going on in the world, and a very, very sharp man, and a person I look up to, obviously, to this day, and he's my hero.
That's awesome. There is a tremendous difference between education and wisdom, and it sounds like your father has just an abundance of wisdom to pass. So that's fantastic. Gary, if you had all the money that you'd ever need, what would you do?
Well, if I had all the money I need, probably just keep it to myself. But I think what you're kind of asking, if you had lots and lots of money, more than you really need.
Yep, ever needed for the rest of your life. Yep.
Yeah. To me, the best, daydreamed, hey, what if I won the lottery? Mm-hmm. Hey, you win the Mega Millions and you got $200 million. To me, the most fun would be giving it away.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
To people and organizations who could really, and give it to them, don't give it to the federal government. They're just going to waste your money. Mm-hmm. But really give it to organizations or directly to people that would really use it and maybe change somebody's life. Wouldn't that be if you could just change one person's life for the better? You could look yourself in the mirror at your end of days and saying, I helped that human being have a better life. Wouldn't that be a great thing to say? That
would be fantastic. And after this podcast, I'm going to give you my address. And so if that ever happens, Gary, I wouldn't mind, you changing my life. That'd be great.
There you go.
All right. Gary, what's your idea of success?
Another easy question. My idea of success is my clients living the life they want to live in retirement. I really think that very sincerely, because I'm in a community here of about 70,000 people here in Kingwood. So I see my clients all the time. I see them at the grocery store. I see them at a restaurant. I see them I saw one of my clients the other day is at the dry cleaners. So you see all these clients, and I'm just so happy I can help them in retirement so they have as much as they can have a carefree retirement, do what they want to do in retirement, and just have a successful life.
Speaking of your clients, what is the one thing you recommend most to your clients, family and friends?
One thing I recommend most to my family and friends, well, they probably get tired of hearing this, and we alluded to it before, is sit down and plan, but also educate. I try to educate my clients. I'm big on education because I wasn't always a financial advisor. Before I got in this business, had a great financial advisor, and the one thing he did with me was to always educate me about what we were doing with my money, my investments. So instead of and I was willing to just, hey, write a check, hey, Bill, whatever he thinks best to do. But he would never let me do that. He would always educate me on, here's what I recommend. Here's why I recommend it. Mm-hmm. Here's why I think it's good for you. He would educate me, give me the pros and cons, and then we would go from there. And I still do that today with my clients because I like to be educated, and I think clients like to be educated. They feel a lot more comfortable about what is happening with their money in their future when they really understand the background and what's going on.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to have a trusted advisor, a relationship, because we get inundated by the media telling us, do this, don't do that, with really no explanation or no good reasoning behind it. It's a blanket statement. It doesn't fit everybody every time, but they expect us to listen to it and do that. So I agree. Having that conversation and a personal relationship with a trusted advisor is phenomenal for that exact reason. You get the explanation, you get the thought process, and the education behind it.
Yes, sir.
All right, my favorite question. You ready?
Sure. What's your favorite question?
Gary, tell me something, or tell our audience one thing that most people don't know about you.
One thing people don't know about me. Okay. When I went to college, I worked in radio and or television stations to make sure I could get through college. So I worked at radio television stations out in Odessa in West Texas, and then ended up going to college out at UTEP out in El Paso. And during that whole time, I worked at radio and television stations to earn my keep.
Nice. Did you get a chance to meet anybody famous?
Did meet a lot of, when you worked at a TV station, periodically the networks send around their celebrities to promote, say, their new fall television series.
Okay, yeah.
And two of the people I remember the most, because we met a lot of people, but if somebody in the audience remembers the old TV series called Gunsmoke.
Oh, yeah.
With James Arness. He had a sidekick on there called Festus. And Festus in real life was a guy named Ken Curtis. And he came to El Paso once, came to the CBS TV station I worked at out there. And we got to know Mr. Curtis. In fact, we ended up driving Mr. Curtis and his wife to Juarez, Mexico, so they could go out and eat at a famous restaurant over there. And he was really, really a delight. He and his wife just kept up the conversation. Here's a little college kid driving somebody in Mexico, and these people just made me feel like, they've been my friends the entire life. But he was just, not only somebody you saw on TV, but in real life, he was a real human being and more than you expected.
That's fantastic.
But maybe the most fun we ever had with anybody, there was a guy who developed a character called Bozo the Clown out of Chicago. And the real guy's name was a guy named Larry Harmon. And he used to franchise out the Bozo Show in various cities around the United States. So he came to El Paso. We took our local kids TV show guy and converted him into the local Bozo. So every few weeks for months, he would come out there, critique the show, help us make the Bozo Show better. But he was really a lot of fun to be around. Larry Harmon, the original Bozo the Clown.
That's cool. That would have been a great experience. All right.
Yes, it was. A lot of other people too, but there's two.
Yep. What is your proudest achievement, Gary?
My kids. And my kids, they're all good, well-rounded kids. They're all out of school. And the best part for mom and dad, they're off the payroll and nobody's in jail.
Nice. That's batting 1,000 right there.
So, kids, really proud of achievements, personal life, business life. I hate to keep harping on this, but business life, just people having a nice retirement and doing what they want to do in retirement. But that's way secondary to the kids.
Great. All right, we have our last question. Gary, you have the attention of a lot of people, and hopefully the folks listening to this will understand that you are going to be giving so much wisdom. They need to be sharing this with their friends and family. Who should listen to this podcast?
Who should listen to this podcast? We kind of said it off and on throughout the podcast. People who want to have a successful retirement, they need a plan. They don't have a plan. They want somebody to help them through having that successful retirement outcome. And they're willing to spend some time and effort, because it does take some time and effort on a client's part. We probably meet, I would say, anywhere from 3 to 6 hours and that's just meeting with me, not counting the time I spend behind the scenes developing a plan. But again, those people that are willing to sit down and plan and are willing to do that. Some people are not. I just tell people, if you're not, I'm not your cup of tea, because I will not invest your financial future, your hard-earned money that it took you 30, 40 years to accumulate. I'm not going to take that lightly. So if you won't plan, I won't plan with you, and I'm not your cup of tea. You need to go find somebody else.
For those that are ready to plan, how do they reach you?
Real easy. You can find us on the internet, www.thekig, and that stands for the Kingwood Investment Group, thekig.com. Real easy. We're in the phone book. If you just Google Kingwood, Investment Group, you'll find us on the internet, or just give us a call here at the office. Real easy to find. We've been here for years and years in Kingwood. Like I said, been doing this since 1994.
Thank you, Gary, so much for your time today. And for all of those listening, thank you for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Gary comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device, which makes it so much easier to share with your friends and family. Thank you again for listening today. For everyone at Kingwood Investment Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Guy podcast. Click the subscription button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Kingwood Investment Group. The content has been made available for information and education purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions that you may have regarding your investment planning. Kingwood Investment Group is independent of Next Financial Group, Inc. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Next Financial Group, Inc., member FINRA/SIPC.